Good afternoon, Simon Lamb here from Two Way Digital, home of the intelligent marketers. So today we're going to be talking about crawl errors and adding monitoring to your website. So we have covered that a little bit in other videos, how to set it up and how to find the errors, crawl errors, robots, text, etc. So I won't go into that too much today. So there is going to be a little bit of a crossover there, but I wanted to add something else to that so that you can be notified if certain other things happen. So if you're catching this live, please say hi. I'll shout you out if I see your message. If you're watching on the replay, please do feel free if you've got any questions at the end to ask them. Give us a hashtag replay if you enjoy the video. Thumbs up. And all the rest of it if you feel that you got some value out of this piece of content. So let's dive into it. So depending on how you got here, whether you're following through a series of videos on SEO, whether you're going through the blog post or the YouTube channel or however, we've covered, as I said, in setting up the webmaster tools. We've done a bit on indexing errors and robots, and this is more to sort of cover some of the other things that, whilst they could produce some of those errors, they might not be as obvious as to the cause why. Now, if your website goes down, obviously that's going to raise a few red flags, but there's lots of other things that can happen internally on your website and little errors that can creep in, especially if you're making lots of changes to your website. So if you're just getting started on your SEO and content creation journey, and there are lots of changes going on around your website, it is quite important to keep checking back and making sure that errors aren't creeping in. One of the reasons for that is that bad user experience can affect your rankings as much as an SEO error or bad content or irrelevant content. All of those things are bad for ranking on the search engines. So if you've got errors creeping into your site that are causing pages not to be displayed properly, we go back to what we talked about in the crawl errors and things not being set up quite right, and you get in things like or actually dead links is another one as well, and we'll cover that in probably the next video actually. All of these things can stop your website being crawled, and if they are being crawled and there are those errors in there, they will generate potentially bad user experiences, which are all bad for ranking. So if your pages aren't loading properly when somebody clicks on your site, that's essentially a bad user experience, and you really need to know as soon as possible that that is happening. So one of the things that you can help to protect yourself against that is, if it's an error that's creeped in and maybe that's an external factor, then you can actually have what's called a downtime monitor. So if your website goes offline for any reason, you want to know about that as soon as possible so that you can either go and fix it. Now, if your server's crashed or you've got DNS problems or there's an outage somewhere, there may not be nothing that you can do about it directly if you're with a hosting company, but normally they'll detect that and they'll be working on it, but you can just follow that up and make sure. When you get crawl errors, and you'll usually get those reported to you via the Google Search Console or the big webmaster tools, which we do have a video on about how to set those up. You can find out what the associated error is and then look a bit deeper into it about why things have gone wrong. But some of the things it could be, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of things, but like I say, it could be server connectivity issues, it could be robots text, so you might have fetch errors in there, which is something you can do about. If you've got URL errors, so that you're not able to get to destinations on your website, it could be a server error, it could be soft 404s, it might be a hard 404 not found. Could be an access denied error, a not followed, a DNS error. There's lots of different things that essentially can stop a website from working fully and properly and giving the best experience to your visitors as possible. Now, obviously, a lot of these are going to be detectable by Google Search Console and will be reported. But you do need to make sure that what's being reported is right, because sometimes it might be a symptom of something else that's causing that error. So if all of a sudden you get a whole flurry of errors and you've not made changes in all those pages, it could be something else that's external to the site or internal to your hosting company that maybe has caused the problem. So being aware of that means that you can then get onto the case and start following it up. Now, in terms of the actual monitoring, so if your site does go down, things aren't responsive, you basically want something monitoring your site so that you get an alert when your site is offline. Now, if you're a WordPress user, as we are, I've mentioned it a few times, then actually something that comes almost as default with a lot of WordPress setups these days is a utility called Jetpack. And Jetpack has built into it, on the free tier package, a downtime monitoring service. So you just configure that. You ideally want it to have it notifying you at an email address that you monitor. So you don't want it into like a spam email or anything like that you just have all your junk mails and you never read it from one year to the next. It needs to be something that you monitor so that when you get the email, you actually look at it and notice, oh, my website's down, I better go and have a look and find out why. If you're not a WordPress user and you don't have Jetpack, then obviously there are other platforms available. So Freshworks actually created a tool called FreshPing. It's a great tool. You can just go and have a quick look at that, get that set up, monitor your site, and get alerts in the same way that if your site's down, then they'll email you and let you know. So, as I'm not going to go into detail on the errors again per se, because it has been covered in another video, but it's just to say that on this lesson, the main thing I want to get across is actually setting up some form of active monitoring so that if you do get errors and they're not caused by something that you've necessarily done yourself, you still get notified and you've got the opportunity then to go and fix it. Because the last thing you want is your website down for 2 or 3 days, especially if you've got content that's ranking and all of a sudden, if you've got hundreds of visitors a day, and you start getting a bounce rate of 100% because all of your links are not displaying the page, or they're really, really slow or something like that, and you're getting timeouts, then that will affect your rankings because Google will note that high bounce rate, and you want to get it fixed as soon as possible. So that's pretty much it for this lesson. A very short lesson, very quick, nice and easy and simple to do. So, Freshworks or Jetpack, go and make sure you've got something like that available for you. So you may have something on your hosting even that you can configure for monitoring the uptime. If you've got that built in, then by all means, feel free to use that. You certainly don't need to go out and buy any tools if you've already got them available in another package that you already use. So that's it for today. As I say, I hope you found this useful. If you've got any questions, please, like I say, do feel free to ask. Join us in our property group. The link will be in the blog post, which you'll find under this video. More than happy to have you along in that group, and feel free to ask any questions that you've got. And although this particular video series at the moment is about SEO, we do also cover organic marketing sort of on search engine platforms, creating videos, etc. as well. So that if you've got questions about those, you're more than welcome to ask. So hopefully see you in the group. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day and take care. So goodbye for now.